Hello everyone and welcome to Kiki Crochet. In this video tutorial we are going to learn how to crochet step by step the Anemos Beanie hat. This is a very easy, very simple hat where I'm using the bead stitch, okay? The rule for my stitch, because I'm doing a little slight change in the beginning of the row when I work the bead stitch, is multiples of 2 plus 5. And my repeating rows are row 5 through row 8. So I'm always repeating those 4 rows. So now let's see the material that we're going to use and how to start. The yarn that I'm going to use is Alize Bourgoum Classique and Alize Bourgoum Batik. And if you're going to use 2 colors as I am, you're going to need 1 skein from each color. Each skein is 3.53 ounces and 230 yards. If you're going to use only 1 color for your hat, you're going to need 2 skeins from the color that you're going to choose. And the crochet hooks that I'm going to use is a 5mm that we're going to crochet the hat that we're going to start now. And for the ribbing, we're going to crochet with a 4.5mm crochet hook. Let's see how to start. I have already started with my chain, and because I'm crocheting for women's size, I have worked a total of 31 chains. Now for all sizes, from the total number of chains, in row 1, because we're going to work single crochet, we're going to have 1 less stitch. So from the 31 chains, in row 1, I'm going to have a total of 30 single crochet. So when we work with single crochet, skip the first chain, start crocheting from the second one, and work 1 single crochet. Next chain, 1 single crochet. Next one, 3, next one, 4, next chain, 5, and keep crocheting up until the end right over here for a total of 30 single crochet. I have completed crocheting row 1 for a total of 30 single crochet. Now we're going to start row 2. So chain 1 and turn your work. Starting from the very first stitch, I'm going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch across. So first stitch, 1, next stitch, 2, next one, 3, next one, 4, and keep crocheting 1 single crochet up until the end right over here for a total of 30 single crochet. I have completed row 2. Now we're going to start row 3, chain 1 and turn your work. So in row 3 again we're going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch across for a total of 30 stitches again, starting from the first stitch, 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3, next one, 4, and keep crocheting up until the end again right over here for a total of 30 single crochet. I have completed row 3 with a total of 30 single crochet. Now we're going to start row number 4, where we're going to crochet a row of beads. Now, and this is how the whole project is going to go, with 3 rows of single crochet, 1 row of the bead stitch, 3 rows of single crochet, 1 row with the bead stitch, and so on. So I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. Now, what I'm going to do, and every time that we start the row of the bead stitch, this side is going to be the top part of my hat. And this is because I'm going to start with a single crochet, then 1 half double crochet, and then starting from the next stitch I'm going to work my double crochet to create the bead stitch. What this is going to do, because in every row of the bead stitch we're going to be starting the same exact way, it's going to make my hat look, it's going to shrink my hat here on this spot, and it's going to be easier for me to take the stitches together in the end. Okay, so starting from the very first stitch, and this is how for all sizes every time we work the row of the bead stitch, this is how we're going to be starting. First stitch, I'm going to work 1 single crochet. Second stitch, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet. And starting from the next stitch, I'm going to work the bead stitch. Okay, so yarn over once and work 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Now, because the yarn is because I'm crocheting with this color of yarn, it doesn't look that right on the camera. So what I want you to understand is now I'm going to put my hook on the right side of the double crochet, and what we really are doing, if you turn it clockwise, it's the same thing as if you would be working under the double crochet. And I'm going to be yarning over once and taking the hook under the stitch for a total of 3 times to collect loops to create the bead on the double crochet that I just created. Okay, so yarn over once and put your hook on the right side of the double crochet. Okay, take the yarn and pull it under the stitch. Yarn over once, and for the second time put your hook in the same exact spot. Grab the yarn and pull it under the stitch and hold the loops on your hook. So for the third and last time, put your hook under the stitch, grab the yarn and hold the loops on your hook. So we did that step a total of 3 times, and I have a total of 7 loops on my hook. Grab the yarn and pull through the 6 loops, not all 7, just the first 6. And now leave the last 2 on your hook, in which we're going to close together to create a single crochet. So when we are on the wrong side, what we really have on each bead is 1 stitch that's created with a double crochet and 1 stitch that we just created with the single crochet that we did with the last 2 loops. Okay, now skip the next stitch and put your hook in the second one and work a double crochet. And I'm going to follow the same exact steps. I'm going to put my hook in the right side of the double crochet. If you turn clockwise, it's the same thing as having your hook under the stitch. And we're going to do the steps 3 times as we did here to create the bead. So yarn over once, put your hook on the right side of the double crochet, grab the yarn and hold the loops. Second time, put your hook under the stitch, hold the loops. For the third time, put your hook under the double crochet, grab the yarn and hold the loops. Again, we have 7 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through the first 6, and now we have 2 left on our hook. Grab the yarn, pull through 2. Okay, skip the next stitch, put your hook in the second one and work 1 double crochet. And now again, around the double crochet, we're going to work the bead. So yarn over once, put your hook on the right side of the double crochet and hold the loops. Second time, under the stitch and hold the loops. Third time, under the stitch and hold the loops. So again, we did it a total of 3 times. We have 7 loops. Grab the yarn, pull through the first 6 and leave the last 2 to close them together and form a single crochet. So let's do 1 more stitch together. So skip the next stitch, put your hook in the second one and work 1 double crochet. Now on the right side of the stitch, grab the yarn, put your hook on the right side and hold the loops on your hook. For the second time, put your hook under the stitch and hold the loops. For the third and last time, put your hook under the stitch and hold the loops. So we did it 3 times. We have 7 loops. Close together the first 6, sorry, my count is so bad today. So close together the first 6 stitches. We have 2 on our hook, which we're going to close together to form a single crochet. Okay, so this is how our bead stitch looks like. See how here where we started with a single crochet and a half double crochet, how it looks like it's cut right here in the front. This is what we want to achieve every time we start the row of the bead stitch. Now, if you're afraid that you're going to get confused, just place a stitch marker on this side of your project to remember that every time that you start the row with the bead stitch, that you need to start in this way. Okay, so I'm going to complete the rest of the row off camera. Create your bead stitch in every second stitch of the row, and in the last 2 stitches right here you're going to work the last bead stitch, and in the very last single crochet of the row, okay, I'm going to work a plain double crochet. So in the second before the end stitch I'm going to work the bead stitch, and in the last stitch I'm going to work a double crochet. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to start the next row, row number 5, which is going to be my first row of repetitions. I have completed row 4 with my bead stitch. Now we're going to start row 5, which is the first row of repetitions. So chain 1 and turn your work. So starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 single crochet. And now we said earlier that on every bead stitch we have a total of 2 stitches on top of it. One is this one over here, which is the single crochet that I closed the last 2 loops together, and this stitch over here, which is a double crochet. Okay, so let's go 2, next stitch, 3, next stitch, 4, 5, 6, 7, and keep crocheting up until this spot where I'm going to have a total of 28 single crochet, and the last 3 stitches we're going to crochet together. So for all sizes, the last 3 stitches are going to be worked in the same exact way that we're going to do now. So the 28th stitch is going to fall right over here, and I'm going to have 3 stitches left in the end that we're going to work together. Okay, so I have worked a total of 28 single crochet and I have 3 left. Now, if you paid attention to what I said, I have 28 plus 3 left. I have a total of 31 single crochet. But in rows 1, 2, and 3, I had a total of 30 single crochet. In order to have a total of 30 single crochet again, just so the row of the bead stitch does not change, what I need to do in the 3rd and 2nd stitches before the end, I'm going to close them together to form a decrease, and in the last stitch of the row I'm going to work just 1 single crochet. This applies to all sizes. The 3 last stitches are going to be worked in the same exact way. So I'm in stitch 28, stitch 29 and stitch 30 are going to be worked together to form 1 stitch, so that's going to be stitch number 29, and in the last stitch, my 30th stitch, is going to be a plain single crochet. So put your hook in the 29th stitch, grab the yarn and hold the loop on your hook. Put your stitch in the next stitch, put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn and hold the loop on your hook. So I have 3 loops which I want to close together, but I want you to pay close attention. Do not do this step tightly. I want you to do it as loose as possible, just so I will not make a diagonal look in the end over here. And the reason that I'm not closing the last 2 stitches together, which I could also do that, but I would have a diagonal, it's going to look diagonal in the end, and it's going to seem as if I'm doing decreases. It's going to look like a step. So I don't want to close the last 2 stitches together. I want to do my decrease before the end. Okay, so close those last 3 stitches together loosely like this. Okay, and work 1 single crochet in the last stitch of the row. So every time for all sizes that you do the first row of repetitions, this is how you're going to finish the row. Now I'm going to chain one and I'm going to turn my work, and rows 6 and 7 are going to be worked off camera, because I always start from the first stitch and I work one single crochet in every stitch across for a total of 30 stitches. Okay, so rows 6 and 7 we're going to work single crochet, and when it's time to start row 8, which is going to be the row of the bead stitch, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to do that together. I have completed row 6 and 7 off camera with one single crochet in every stitch. Now we're going to start row 8, which is the fourth and last row of repetitions, where we're going to work the same exact steps as we did in row 4. So I'm going to chain one and I'm going to turn my work. Starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work one single crochet, one half double crochet in the next stitch, one double crochet in the next stitch, and starting from this stitch with a double crochet, I'm going to start creating my beads. So as I said earlier, when we work the beads, we put our hook on the right side of the stitch and we work 3 times to collect loops. The same thing is as if you have your work sideways and you put your hook under the double crochet. So another way, you can have your work sideways like this. Okay, grab the yarn and start collecting your loops. So first time, hold the loops, second time, hold the loops, and for the third and last time, hold the loops on your hook. So take the yarn through the first 6 loops and leave the last 2 to close them together and create a single crochet. So skip the next stitch, put your hook in the second one, and work one double crochet. Again, if you have your work a little sideways, okay, yarn over once, and first time, second time, put your hook under the stitch, and for the third time, put your hook under the stitch. Okay, grab the yarn, pull through the first 6 loops, grab the yarn, close the last 2 loops together to form the single crochet. So keep working in every second stitch, and the last bead is going to fall in the second before the last stitch of the row. So this is where you're going to create your last bead, and in the next stitch, which is the last stitch of the row, we're going to work a plain double crochet. Okay, once I finish my row, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how our project looks like. I have completed crocheting row number 8, which was the fourth and last row of repetitions. So now I'm going to keep working off camera, repeating those 4 rows, row 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we're repeating rows 5 through row 8. And for women's size, I'm going to crochet a total of 60 rows. We have crocheted 8 rows at this point. So I need a total of 60 rows, and I want my piece to be a total of 52 centimeters. In the chart in the beginning of the video, I'm going to be converting those centimeters into inches as well. So let's say that you're going to use a thinner yarn and a smaller crochet hook. Just make sure that when you finish your piece that it's about 52 centimeters long. Now always be aware when you work the first row of repetitions that you work the decrease on those 2 stitches right over here. So up to the 28th stitch, I'm working one single crochet in every stitch. Stitch 29 and 30, I'm closing together to form a decrease and make it loose so it does not shrink, and one single crochet in the last stitch. So once I finish crocheting my 60 rows, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue with our beanie. I have completed crocheting and I have worked a total of 60 rows for women's size, and you're gonna see that on the side that we're working the single crochet and the half double crochet, it has shrinked a little bit. Okay, and you're also going to see your project to be waving a little bit, and that's because we shrunk the project on the one side by working the single crochet and the half double crochet. If you see this on your project, it's not wrong, that's how it's supposed to be. So this side, as we mentioned earlier in the video that we worked the single crochet and the half double crochet, is the top part of our hat, and the other side is the bottom part, where now we're going to start working the ribbing for the rib stitch for the ribbing around our hat. So in order to finish, okay, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, the last row for all sizes is going to be a row with a bead stitch, okay? And in the beginning of the video, in the chart, for all sizes, I'm going to mention how many rows we're going to need. So what I want you to do now is, in order to finish our project, after the last double crochet, I have already chained one, cut the yarn, and fasten off. And now I'm going to switch to a 4.5mm crochet hook to work the ribbing. And as I mentioned, the ribbing is going to be worked on this side where my double crochet are regular, okay, on this side where we just cut the yarn. And what I'm going to do is I am going to attach the yarn on the top part of the double crochet, and I'm going to work 11 chains, and I'm going to come back and work 10 single crochet. And every time that I work my 2 rows of single crochet, I'm going to be working 2 slip stitches on my project. First, I'm going to show you the spots on where we're going to be working the slip stitches, and then we're going to go ahead and work the ribbing. So when we work on the double crochet has 2 spots on where we can work the slip stitches. The one spot is on the top of the stitch, and the second spot is right here in the bottom. Then we have 3 rows of single crochet. Each hole that I have here, 1, 2, 3, is the first stitch of every row of single crochet. Then again, I have my double crochet. I have a stitch on the top part of the stitch and a stitch on the bottom. Then again, the next 3 holes, 1, 2, 3, are my 3 rows of single crochet. Okay, so we have seen the spots on where we can work our slip stitches throughout the work. Now let's see how to work the ribbing. So you can go ahead and continue crocheting with the same yarn. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a second color to make the ribbing with a different color. So I'm going to work with my 4.5mm crochet hook, and I'm going to attach the yarn on the top of the double crochet. Grab the yarn, pull it through the stitch, and chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And for each size, I'm going to mention how many chains to start with for the ribbing. Now, we do know the rules of crocheting, so when I have 11 chains and my first row is of single crochet, I have 1 less stitch than my chains. So out of the 11 chains, I'm going to have a total of 10 single crochet throughout for the ribbing. So I'm going to skip the first chain and start crocheting from the second one and work 1, next chain, 2, next one, 3, 4, let me swing a little more, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last chain, 10. Now, earlier I showed you the spots on where we can work our slip stitches. So, since I attached my yarn on the top part of the double crochet, now I want you to work a slip stitch on the bottom part of the double crochet, and this slip stitch is for the row I just finished. Then I'm going to work a second slip stitch on the first row of single crochet, and this is for the row that I'm going to start crocheting. So every time you go back and forth and you have worked 2 rows of single crochet, because from here on we're going to have 2 rows of single crochet, we are going to be working a total of 2 slip stitches. The one slip stitch is for the row that you just finished, and the second one is for the row that you're going to start. So 2 slip stitches, chain 1, and turn the work. So now we want to be working on the back loops of every single crochet. So please be aware, do not confuse this stitch as a single crochet. These right here are my 2 slip stitches. So it's always nice to count your stitches, just so you don't have 11 or 12. We always want to have 10. And this right here is the first single crochet. Out of those stitches, I have the front loop, which is this one over here, and the back loop. So I always want to be grabbing the back loop of every stitch. And an easy way to know is if you put your hook in the center, okay, in the middle of the front and back loop, go ahead and grab the back loop. Next stitch, back loop, and so on. Okay, so first stitch, back loop. We always crochet on the back loops in every single row. 1, next stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last stitch, 10. Now chain 1 and turn your work to crochet on the other side. Okay, so now we're going back. Again, 10 single crochet always on the back loop, starting from the first stitch right over here. 1, next stitch, 2, next one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, always on the back loop to create the ribbing. Now please be aware, do not crochet on top of those stitches, because those were our slip stitches. So we never crochet on top of them. We always want to have 10 single crochet. So since I have worked on this first row of single crochet, now the first slip stitch is going to go in the second row of single crochet, and the second slip stitch is going to go in the third row of single crochet. Chain 1 and turn the work. The first slip stitch was for the row that I just finished, and the second slip stitch is for the row that I'm going to start right away. Again, this is my first stitch right over here. Do not get confused, these are slip stitches. So this is my first single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and my last stitch, 10. Chain 1 and turn the work. Okay, so now we're going back. Now, it's probably going to be easier to see through the purple now. So see here where we have our single crochet. Now this is a front loop and this is a back loop. We always put our hook in the center and always grab the back loop. And this was the second stitch. The first stitch is this one over here. So this is the first stitch and that's the back loop that we want to grab this one. Okay, so grab the back loop and work one, next stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last stitch 10. Again, the next stitches over here are my slip stitches, so we never crochet on them. Okay, since I have worked on the third row, so it's nice to remember where you have crocheted. You can write it down just so you don't get confused up until you understand where you're supposed to be working the slip stitches. So since my last slip stitch was on the third row of single crochet, okay, now the first slip stitch is going to be on the top of the double crochet. And the second slip stitch is going to be made on the bottom part of the double crochet. Okay, chain 1 and work your 2 rows of single crochet and so on, okay? So since I have worked the 2 slip stitches on top of the double crochet, once I finish my 2 rows, the next 2 slip stitches are going to be made on the first and second row of single crochet. Once I finish my 2 rows, my 2 slip stitches are going to be made on the third row of single crochet and the top part of my double crochet. Once I finish my 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the bottom part of the double crochet and the first row of single crochet. After the 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the second row and the second slip stitch on the third row of single crochet. Once I finish my 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the top of the double crochet and the second one on the bottom of the double crochet. Once we finish the 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the first row and the second slip stitch on the second row of single crochet. Once I work my 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made in the third row and the second slip stitch on the top of the double crochet. Once I work my 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the bottom part of the double crochet and the second one on the first row of single crochet. After you work the 2 rows, the first slip stitch is going to be made on the second row and the second slip stitch on the third row of single crochet. So this is how it's going to go throughout. And once I finish crocheting up until the end, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to join the 2 sides and how to work then on the top part of our hat so we can finish crocheting, okay, to close up the top part as well. I have completed crocheting the ribbing for my hat. Okay, this is where I finished and the total rows are 74. Now, if your hat is shrinking like this, okay, this is because we made the ribbing with a smaller crochet hook to make it tighter on the head, okay? Now, the total length for the hat is 26 centimeters. I have the centimeters and the inches, the chart in the beginning of the video, okay, because this is women's size. For teenagers, the total length of the hat is going to be 24 centimeters. And for the children's size, it's going to be 22 centimeters from the top to the bottom, okay? Now, this is the good side, and this side where I can see the joining of the slip stitches, this is going to be the wrong side of my project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold in half, and I want to be seeing the wrong side of my project, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to join first, I'm going to join the ribbing. Okay, so I'm going to start here going downwards, and then I'm going to cut the yarn, and I'm going to join the white yarn that I was using to join the other part of the hat. Okay, so if you made your hat in two colors as I did, with the one color you're going to join the ribbing, and then you're going to attach the second color to close the other half of the hat. So let's see how we're going to do that. Okay, so now we're going to start joining. What I want you to do is after your last slip stitch, chain one, okay? And now let's start slip stitching to join our hat. So put your hook on the first single crochet on the front side and on the first chain on the back side, because right over here is the chains that we started our ribbing. So put your hook in the first chain and join the two sides by working a slip stitch. So take your hook through the both stitches and through the loop that you have on your hook. Now put your hook in the second single crochet on the front side and the second chain on the back side, and again join by working a slip stitch. So for women's size, I had a total of 10 single crochet, so this means that I'm going to have a total of 10 slip stitches going downwards. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to join the yarn to close the top part as well. I have completed crocheting my 10 slip stitches. Now I'm going to chain one, cut the yarn fast enough, and now we're going to join the top part of our hat. Okay, so since we completed the ribbing, now we're going to turn to work slip stitches to close the top part. So I want you to join the yarn in the same stitch right here, which is the same stitch where you worked your last slip stitch for the ribbing on the front part, and on the same stitch where I have worked slip stitch for the ribbing on the back part. Okay, take the yarn, pull it through the stitch and chain one to join. Now put your hook on the next stitch on the front side and in the next chain on the back side, because the back side is the chains that we worked to start our hat with. Okay, so this is the next chain over here, and work a slip stitch to join both sides. In the next stitch in the front part, in the next stitch on the back part, and slip stitch to join. Now for women's size, I had 30 single crochet throughout my projects, so this means that I'm going to have a total of 30 slip stitches up until the end when I finish joining. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to crochet on the top part to make it shrink so we can close it and then attach the pom-pom on the top. I have completed working my slip stitches, so I joined the top part as well. Now what I want you to be aware of is, because in every row after the row with the beads we were always skipping the second before last stitch. This means that after you have worked your 30 slip stitches, you will have the last stitch in the front left. Okay, the last single crochet is going to be left out, so I want you to grab that stitch and join it with the last stitch again with the back piece. Okay, so the last two stitches of the front piece are going to be joined in the last stitch on the back part. Okay, so do not cut your yarn. We're going to continue crocheting from here. So I'm going to turn the inside out. Okay, and I'm going to take the yarn through the inside so it's coming out from the top. Okay, so this is how our good side will look like. See how nice it's shrinking down over here. This is what we want to achieve with the ribbing, and this is how it looks going to the top. This is our seam over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue working up here, and I'm going to work single crochet decreases to shrink the top part of our hat. And I'm going to continue crocheting with the 4mm because I don't care, because I want to shrink the top part. So it doesn't matter if you work with the smaller hook that we're using. Okay. So what I'm going to do is after the last slip stitch, make sure you chain one. And what I'm going to do is I want to grab the first single crochet of every row. Now on this side, all the first stitches are single crochet because we were always, even in the row with the beads, we were always starting with one single crochet. Okay, so every hole that you see, these are stitches that I want to crochet into. They are the first single crochet of every row. So what I want you to do is put your hook in the first stitch, take the yarn, pull it through the stitch, and hold the loop on your hook. Put your hook in the second stitch, grab the yarn, and hold the loop on your hook. We have 3 loops, which we're going to close together to work a decrease. Now those 2 stitches became 1. Okay, now close again the next 2 stitches together. Put your hook in the next stitch and hold the loop on your hook. Put your hook in the next stitch and hold the loop on your hook. We have 3 loops which we're going to close together to form a decrease. So those 2 stitches became 1. Put your hook in the next stitch, grab the yarn, hold the loop on your hook. Put your hook in the next stitch, take the yarn, hold the loop on your hook. So again, we have 3 loops which we're going to close together to form a decrease. Now we had a total of 60 rows, and because we're closing together, every 2 stitches we're closing them together, I'm going to be left with a total of 30 stitches in the end. So I'm going to be left with half of the stitches that I had in the beginning, 60 stitches, and I'm going to be left with 30. So once I finish crocheting all around, once I close together the last 2 stitches, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed crocheting my 30 decreases, and this is how your hat is going to look on the top. The hole in the center has closed, and on the front it looks as if it had shrunk on the top. Okay, it's going to start looking like a bell up here. So let me zoom in to see how to continue. Okay, so after your last decrease, which the last 2 decreases are right before the seam, okay? After your last decrease, work a slip stitch on the first stitch of the row, chain 1, and starting from the same stitch as you worked the slip stitch, work 1 single crochet all around. So 1, next stitch, 2, next one, 3, next one, 4. So keep working 1 single crochet all around for a total of 30 stitches, and you're going to see that in the end of this row the hole in the center will get even smaller. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed working my 30 single crochet all around, and as you see in the top, the hole got even smaller over here. Okay, so now we're going to crochet 2 more rows of decreases to make it as small as possible. So what I'm going to do is after the last single crochet, I'm going to put my hook in the first stitch of this row, and I'm going to work a slip stitch, chain 1, and starting from the same stitch as the slip stitch, put your hook and hold the loop on your hook, second stitch, hold the loop on your hook, and close the 3 loops together. So we're working the decreases in the same exact way. So I'm closing every 2 stitches together, so the 30 single crochet that I had now are going to be 15. Okay, so let's do one more together. Next stitch, hold the loop on your hook. Next stitch, hold the loop on your hook and close the 3 loops together to form the decrease. So once I work all 15 of my decreases together, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to start the next and last row of my hat. I completed working my decreases. See how the hole on the top has gotten even smaller? Okay, so now we're going to work the last row with 1 single crochet all around, and the hole on the top is going to get even smaller. So before we do that, I'm going to work a slip stitch to close this row. On the first stitch of the row, chain 1, and starting from the same stitch as the slip stitch, work 1 single crochet all around for a total of 15 stitches. 1, next stitch 2, next one 3, and keep crocheting for a total of 15 stitches. I have completed crocheting my 15 single crochets. See how the hole got even smaller in the top of my hat. Now what I want you to do after you work your slip stitch, chain 1, cut a long tail and fasten off. Now what I want you to do, take the yarn and pull it through the needle. Okay, and what I want you to do is put the needle in the one stitch and take it out from the next one. Put it in the next stitch, take it out from the next one, and every few stitches that you sew together, pull them together to tighten up and close the hole on the top even more. Once you finish sewing all the stitches together, turn your work on the inside out, take your needle on the inside of your hat. Okay, I want you to work a few more stitches on the inside if the hole has not closed on the top. Okay, if it hasn't closed on the top after you sew the stitches together, when you're on the wrong side, just take a few more stitches all around to close it up. Make a few knots and weave in your ends on the inside loops, on the back loops here of the single crochet in the wrong side of your hat. Okay, once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to attach the pom-pom. I have completed joining my hat. This is how it looks on the top. We are on the good side. Now you can either leave it plain as it is, or you can make a pom-pom and attach it on the top, or you can buy a fox fur pom-pom and attach it on the top. The fox fur pom-poms, they usually come with those 2 threads on them, and I want you to place your pom-pom on the top center of the hat. Now I don't have my sewing needle, I can't find it to show you how to sew, but what I want you to do is I want you to take those 2 strings of yarn and take them on the wrong side of your hat. I want you to pull them on the inside, and see how we are on the good side now. I want you to hold the pom-pom with your hand, turn the inside out, and as you have a ball right here in the center of your hat with the 2 strings of yarn that the pom-pom has, I want you to start sewing, and I want you to grab part of the hat and part of the pom-pom all around. And I want you to do that with both strings, okay? Sew all around and grab hat and pom-pom like this, all around. Do that with both yarns, and once you do that, your hat is completed. And once I finish my hat, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how it looks completed. But you can always leave it plain if you don't like pom-poms, okay? I have completed attaching my pom-pom, and this is how my hat looks like. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you like the video, please press like and leave a comment. Thanks again. Bye bye.